Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I was traveling this week for work.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I was in Houston.
The great state of Texas.
The great state of Texas, where everything's bigger. I was in Houston, and after facilitating, I slept for 14 hours.
Can I tell you, that's great. You slept that long. You needed it. But secondly, you know what's interesting to me about Houston is I did not know this until like a couple years ago, that Houston's the most diverse city in the country.
Yeah.
And it's in Texas, which is like this most backwards ass, sorry, Texas, but come on, really like sort of peak MAGA nonsense.
Yeah, Governor Abbott.
Right? But they're there with the most diverse city and a huge city.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Like it does sometimes when I think about it that way, I'm like, maybe there's still that hope that Texas could go purple and maybe it could change. But anyway, just to for people who don't know, because I only recently, really in the last few years, learned about the fact that Houston was that diverse.
Yeah.
Sitting in this place that we don't think of maybe as being the most diverse, or at least not the most progressive place. And
yeah.
Houston is it's fairly progressive.
Yeah, it is. I was actually surprised because the first time I went was last fall to meet with this client and her like team of directors before starting on the professional development workshops that I did for them this year. And so was actually, pleasantly surprised that I was nervous. Well, that's not true. I have been to Texas before. I've been to Dallas.
Yeah, I would say my only experience with Texas is Dallas, and that is not the same as Houston.
Yeah, it's very different. And, from everything you see in the news about Texas, you're just like.
But you got Austin, which is clearly very liberal, very progressive. And then Houston, this incredibly diverse and pretty progressive place. It's just not enough, I guess, to make up for all the other folks.
Yeah, for all the other stuff. Yeah.
Texas. This is a grab bag episode. We don't really know what we're going to talk about. We're going to see where our flights of fancy take us. But speaking of, and my dog's going to join us for this episode for a while. But speaking of fancy flights and you going there, how did you feel about traveling? I'm curious where your head's at with air travel right now.
I always feel fine about traveling. Like I know a lot of people are nervous, especially like earlier this year when it was like something was happening every week almost. And, there's always a little part of me that's like, yeah, there's always a chance this plane could go down. But it's one of the safest ways to travel, actually. Like you have more chances of getting or dying in a car accident. I think that's the statistic, if I remember correctly.
It's true, and it still remains true. And today, as we're recording this, which is Friday, May 9th, as we're recording this today, there was a big report that Newark, which just recently had to cancel thousands of flights because
I saw that.
Radar. This morning, they lost their airport air traffic controllers lost radar or contact with radar for like 90 seconds or something, which is not a long time. But that's 90 seconds of airplanes that are flying around there with no, other than just their visual references. And luckily, I think they had that because it wasn't bad weather. But imagine if it's bad weather. I mean, 90 seconds is
a long time for something to go wrong.
Where planes in the air could run into each other. So
yeah.
News like that. And the fact that, they're all the government's ridiculous notions about efficiencies and laying people off and getting rid of people, including air traffic controllers, where we've had shortages forever. And like, I don't know. I was thinking about going to Podcast Movement this summer, and it's in Dallas, speaking of Texas. And I'm like, do I really want to fly? I don't know. I'm so afraid. I've always been a nervous flyer anyway.
Yeah.
But then you add what's going on, and it's like, yeah, I know your chances are low. And yes, I would have more likely to die in a car today. And yet, like in the car, I'm in charge and I'm not, I don't know. Like,
there's a sense of control. There's definitely a sense of control.
Yeah. Because someone else can run into me. I know all of that. And yet I still am like, oh, I don't want to fly.
Yeah. The only thing that I don't like about travel is how careless other people are with like their space and their diseases. Like, I mean, you've got like people just straight up coughing up lungs on the plane with no mask. And these days, like, I just don't think that's smart.
Yeah, I'm flying right out like in 2020, 2021. I didn't do a lot of it, but I did fly maybe 21, 22 when people were still masking for the most part. And it felt a lot safer in that way of like, 'cause that's
Yeah.
another thing. How often do people fly and you come home and you get
And you
sick
get sick.
because you're just
Yeah.
breathing in everybody's germs while you're up
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
that was nice when that was going on because I'm like, okay, but we should still, like, if you go, I don't listen, I'm going to say something now that is based solely on what I think I know. It may not be true. So please tell me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is that in a lot of Asian countries, masking has for a
Has
long
always
time.
been a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like continues to be, and it's like not an issue. It's just because I think they live in a more collective minded place, right? Because also in a lot of Asian countries, multiple generations to live together. They really
Yeah.
believe in that village approach to life. Again, this is making a wide sweep. I understand that. And so they are really good at masking and always have. And it's just a way of being. And I
Yeah.
even know, like in my son's school, the only kid who continues to mask is like the one Asian girl in his class. And I'm like, it's like, it's not about you. It's about the collective good.
Yeah.
And occasionally I see people when you can tell when they're feeling sick, they'll wear a mask. And I do appreciate
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's just like, why is it such an inconvenience for us and our personal liberties when other places it's always been like my
Yeah.
personal liberty? I still know, like, I think there's this idea that I could not wear the mask. So like I have the liberty not to. And for your safety and those around me, I'm going to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't wear a mask all the time just
Don't either.
because I am extremely claustrophobic. And so it can sometimes induce panic, which makes me hyperventilate, which makes it harder to breathe, right? So, but if I know I'm going to be out in a very crowded place or a public place, if I know I'm going to be traveling, then I will mask up, not just for my sake, but for the people around me too, because I don't know what I'm carrying,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm as
And
guilty as the next person, just to say, like, I
yeah,
also am not masking. If I'm sick and I'm going to be around others, I will. But here's the other part of being an introvert. I run around people that much. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't really, it's not a huge issue, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting about air travel is so, Mello, she has a background in science, and one of her research projects at some point was to take samples from the little air vents in
Okay.
airplanes.
That's going to make me, first of all, Mello is your wife for anybody who maybe
Yeah.
doesn't know. And whatever you're about to say, I don't know if I want to hear it.
Don't ever open them.
Please
Don't ever
do,
open
because
them.
I get so hot.
Take a little fan with you.
Okay.
Don't open the air vents in the airplane. That's all I will say about that.
Okay. Okay. I have so many little personal fans now with perimenopause that I just need to remember that. Bring
Yeah.
those. All right.
Yeah. It was
That's gross.
pretty gross.
Okay. Maybe we should talk about something that's not as gross. I don't know what that is. What are you still doing your fanfic
I
deep dive?
am still on my fanfic deep dive. Actually finished one while I was in Houston. It's called Green Light. Actually, Krishna recommended it.
Hmm.
She's going to be on the podcast in a couple weeks. Our
And
friend
she's reading
Krishna.
fanfic too?
She has been
Feel so
in
left
it
out.
forever. And then when I got into it, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're into it. We can talk about it. And this fanfic, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. It's Draco and Hermione. It's loosely inspired, but it's written in three parts. The first part is loosely inspired by The English Patient. The second part is loosely inspired by The Great Gatsby. And then the third part is completely original. And it is the most beautiful piece of writing I have ever read. Like it reads like poetry, like the way that feels fluid and alive. Like that's how this reads. It's a happily ever after, but I'm still just devastated by the story. Like it's just so beautiful. I don't know. I can't even describe
Can you
how.
give credit to the author?
The author is Serena Musafir. At least that's their tag
Or pen
on
name or whatever.
AO3 Archive of Our Own. And apparently this is like the maybe two things that they've written. And after that, they just like went completely dark. Like nobody.
Those are pen names and they write other stuff or something.
It's
Like if it's that
possible.
good, why
Yeah.
are they writing more?
Yeah, it's possible that they could be writing under a different name, but Krishna told me that like they got, I mean, it's fandom, and so everybody has ideas about what the character should be like. And so there was some critique about how she had, or they, I don't know what their gender is or how they identify what their pronouns are, but so I'll just use singular they to be safe, but about how they had written Hermione's character. Shortly after that, they just like went dark. They got off all social media and whatnot. And so In one of the comments that they responded to, they said that they had worked on it for 2 years doing research before writing it. And I'm just like, and it's over 1,000 pages on an
Holy
iPad.
smokes, that's a lot.
It's like almost 450,000 words. And I'm just like, how it's quite, I mean, have you ever read a piece of poetry that has just like splintered your soul?
No, but is that I struggle with poetry, Taina. I'm going to be fully honest. Like,
Have you ever read a piece of writing
yes,
that has just like
I'm much better with
splintered you?
prose than poetry, but yes.
Yeah. And it's painful but beautiful and poignant all at the same time. That's what this was. And I think that's probably why I slept for 14 hours that day, because I had just finished reading it and I was just emotionally
Spent.
drained.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons. Facilitating takes a lot out of me too.
Sure.
But
well, I've been reading, and I'm almost finished with a book called Real Americans by Rachel Khong. I don't know if that's Hong or Kong or, but anyway,
okay. Yeah.
Khong. I believe she's Chinese because this whole thing is about Chinese Americans. Well, the parents are Chinese and immigrated. Her child is Chinese American, and now her son is fully American. It's this idea of kind of what just around like assimilation and multiculturalism and love and all sorts of things. It's really good. So I really recommend it too. It's nice when you find something you like reading, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That engrosses you and like you don't want to stop. I just read Daisy Jones and the Six, which is pretty popular by Taylor Jenkins. And I can't recommend the audiobook enough because it's read by full cast, because the book is like basically a series of interviews. Like it feels like a documentary, right? Like someone interviewing all the characters that are in this band from the 70s, this fictitious 70s band. So it feels like you're listening to behind the music kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And there is Jennifer Beals and Pablo Schreiber and Benjamin Bratt and Judy Greer. Like there's people you know. And like,
wow, they're on the audiobook?
Yes, and they're all
That's
really
cool.
good. So like it was that one I burned through because it was just so so compelling because of their ability to act the parts, you know, and it was a really interesting story.
And it's Benjamin Bratt.
I mean, he's one of the characters, and yes, he's dreamy. I know. And then Judy Greer, who I love, her voice is a little, I don't know. She was interesting because her voice is very tenny, let's say. So like it rung through. But Jennifer Beals, her voice, she's like super seductive and like raspy and like she had this very sexy thing. And I mean, I love the L word. I don't like her as much as some of the other people. I have a shame. But it was so good. I highly recommend it. So that one was great. And the new book I'm reading is good, which is exciting. But sometimes it's like you try to read other things and it's like, oh, it feels like a slog to get through. So it's nice when you find something that feels really good.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to convince Mello to read it now. I mean, so we can talk about it.
Investment of time.
Yeah, like it is. I told her, I was like, just read 2 chapters. Just read 2 chapters because it's told in like a flashback, green light. And so the first chapter is like present time setup. And then the second chapter is when the flashback begins. So I was like, just read 2 chapters. And then if you can't get into it.
Maybe
yes.
Okay, then you and her, at least you have somebody you can have conversations with about it.
When I finished it, I was sending her voice notes on Instagram in tears. I was like, oh my God, I hate this.
Well, hopefully we can find the link and we can put that in the show notes so people can
check it out. For sure.
Okay, now go ahead. I was going to do
I was just going to say the only other thing about that book that or that fic really, because it's not a book, that hit me hard was like one of the main characters has a chronic illness and spends a lot of time in the hospital. And so that just really, the way that it's written, it feels incredibly authentic to what it feels like to live with a chronic illness and have to be in the hospital for long periods of time. So
from somebody who knows them.
Yeah. I really appreciated that.
Feeling seen. This is, I was going to take a hard right turn, but I just quickly want to say like feeling seen in anything you're watching or reading or whatever, man, does it make a difference? And it does make me in a way ache for the women of, century and more ago who had very little opportunity for that, when. Yeah. And I have to believe that there was probably an oral history, if nothing else, or an oral storytelling sort of culture that happened. But it's just got to be so hard. And it's still hard because I was just having a conversation today about podcasting as we're doing this, like how meta am I going to get? But, and like still 70% of podcasts are by white men. Like that is horrible and shocking. And like,
Yeah.
and it's just like having like there, it does something for my ears. I know when I'm listening to shows that are hosted by women, you know, and where it's women having conversations, like you feel seen and understood in a way that you just can't when
Yeah.
it's somebody who just doesn't understand your experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, and this is something that I struggle with because I don't necessarily like to be in the limelight.
Mm.
Like, I don't like to feel like I'm in the limelight, like people are watching me, right? It doesn't, it's, limelight isn't even the right word. It's just, I don't like people's eyes on me, no matter what the situation is. And so I have to remember, and this is something that comes up with, you know, my clients a lot too. It's like you doing the thing that you feel like you're supposed to be doing is someone else feeling seen, right? It's giving permission for someone else to do the thing also. It's your life, your experience then becomes a model for what someone else can dream of being possible for them. And that is, it's not solely on your shoulders, right? Like it's not your complete responsibility to do that, but it's a byproduct of you doing the thing, like staying in alignment with your values and whatnot. And so every time I feel like just really shy and really introverted and not want to have people's eyes on me, like I try to remember that because it's important.
It's so important. I mean, just don't look at the YouTube comments, right? Like I
Yeah.
do because I'm the one who posts for us on YouTube, and I can laugh them off. I mean, whoever you are out there who likes to comment about how fat I am, great, cool, things. Like I don't care. Like the place where I'm at now is like this isn't for you, right? This
Yeah.
isn't for those folks. This isn't for the people who are so fucking concerned about how I look, right? How we show up in the world, these
Yeah.
bodies that we're in. It's for people who care about the content of what we share and who want to have people who represent their voices in the world out there so that they feel less alone. And that's what I try to remember. I was just on a podcast called Just Getting Better with Julia Coney or Comey. Now I'm gonna feel bad at Michelle. I can't remember her last name. Sorry, ladies. They were amazing. It was such a great show. It's about older women and for older women.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about a lot of things, including like menopause and perimenopause, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the throes of. And it's just that reminder to me of like, we need these spaces where we have these, because one of the things they were talking about is like, how does your journey through perimenopause like reflect your beliefs around feminism? And I was like, it has reinforced so much for me, the ways that this world is not made for us. It's not designed for us. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
care about us. And in this case, specifically women and older women, especially, but also all women, because I even talked about like Black maternal health and those sorts of things. Like the fact that, you know, until just like this last 2 years or something, they were still testing car crashes on dummies that were made to represent men and not women when we represent half of drivers. Like it's just, you know, and just all of the ways testing is done and everything
Yeah.
else inside the medical industry. It's like for the longest time, the answer to how do I deal with this phase of my life was basically just suck it up. Deal with
Yeah.
it, ladies. This is just what happens. You're going to have to deal with it. And I mean, I got that from my doctor a few years ago. And the last time I went, it was radically shifted. Even she had learned so much more and is now having these conversations and was like, no, there are things we can do. You know, it wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it sucks. This is this part of life. That shouldn't be an answer to anything is like,
Yeah.
toughen up and get over it. And they also asked me, related to what you were just saying, they asked me about like, which people do sometimes. I don't know if you get this, where they're like, how do you find the courage to talk about such personal things or to be so vulnerable in a public sphere? Aren't you worried of, you know, dealing with the hate and all of that? And I was like, first of all, I don't feel very courageous. But secondly, I think that's because I have a lot of privilege, right? That allows me to feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's a little less courageous. And the reason I do it is because for those who don't have as much privilege and who can't, and so that they do feel less alone. And so I
Yeah.
love that you're pushing, not pushing, that sounds like I was just saying, get over it and push through it, but that you are challenging yourself. You're stretching your comfort zone to like be there and show up because there are people who need your voice.
Thanks, friend.
Well, but it's true. All of our voices. I mean, you know, like, I don't know. I just think that that's, and for anyone listening, that's so
Yeah.
important. We have to like, we have to use our voices.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
people, like you said, somebody out there, that's the salve that they need.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Um, did you ever watch Conclave?
No, here's my, no, I don't, I'm not, I'm not only am I not Catholic, I'm not Christian, and I just
Yeah.
don't care that much about that. Is it Daniel
Yeah.
Day-Lewis too? Or is it someone else? I feel like it was
It's
him.
Ray Fiennes,
He's a lot like
Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow.
I mean, those are great.
They're great
I
actors.
heard it's a great movie too. Just find it hard to bring myself to care about the topic itself because it's so
Yeah.
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, me too. And I'm
Did you
also
watch
just
it?
like, no, I didn't watch it, but I'm also just like, it's another movie about white men.
Yeah.
Like,
Doing what white men do, pretending like their thoughts about these things fucking matter, or like
yeah,
this thing that they created,
yeah,
invented is actually important and reverent and
yeah.
essential. I posted on Blue Sky before the new pope was announced. After the other Francis, whoever it was, like this is how bad I am. I don't remember. I think it was Francis. After he died and before the conclave had started, I was like, wouldn't it be great if they got together and they came out and they blew the white smoke and they said, guess what, guys? God told us we don't even need a pope. As it turns out, you can have a direct relationship with God. We were wrong this whole time. The Protestants had it right. Bye. We're done. Like that would be amazing. And what, of course, it didn't happen. It would never happen because
Yeah,
money. But
yeah.
and I think they are deluded into genuinely believing what they're believing. And now, by the way, I have just alienated every Catholic, and I
Every
know that.
Catholic listener.
Every Catholic, because I think there's a lot of Catholics who are Catholic more by culture than by
Yeah,
belief. And that's cool. Like, I think having religion and having a culture and something that even if the beliefs themselves don't represent you so much, the culture does. And I get that. But yeah, I guess if you're the kind of people who actually believe that you have to have your relationship with God, if you even believe in a God, is somehow conditional on some man who is
mediating.
selected by other men and that they can have that relationship and you have to like, yeah, go through them. I'm sorry. I find that exceptionally hard to be like, I respect and abide by that. Like, you get to
Yeah.
do what you want to do. You do you, boo. But like, that's why I'm like,
Disrespectfully, no. Disrespectfully, no. And I say this as someone who was born into a Catholic family and did my communion. And
did you?
yeah,
I didn't
I
know
went through
that.
the classes. I
I
had my
knew you were
little white
religious, but for some reason,
communion
I always
dress.
assumed it was more of a Protestant,
It
born
was when I
again
got
kind of thing.
older. It was when
Ah,
I got older. So when I was like super young and we lived in New York, it was Catholicism. And
interesting.
then once we moved, we became evangelical Christians. And that was
Well, it's worse in a lot of ways.
20 years of my life, 25 years of my life. Well,
I
so I
have
was
problems with,
deeply,
yeah. I have problems with Catholics, but when I moved from St. Louis is exceptionally Catholic. We're one of the largest Catholic cities in the state or in the country. And when I moved to Iowa and everyone there was like Catholicism was very small and everyone there was born again, I suddenly realized how much I appreciate Catholics. Like, I don't agree with your belief system, but at least like you guys drink, you have some fun, right?
yeah,
Like, it's not this like super uptight
yeah,
born again sort of thing.
yeah,
You got
yeah.
both.
It
So
was,
lucky you.
yeah, I got out. I got out. The stories I could tell. Because I was not only like it was my whole life. Like I lived it. I worked in the church
The
for a long
Catholic Church
time.
or the
The Christian, the evangelical Christian church.
can I do a quick aside? The fact that you just made that you said Christian and then you said evangelical Christian. I was telling my mom, she was like, this place is so Christian here. I said, Mom, it's really Catholic. And she's like, that's the same thing. And I said, oh, Mom, you don't understand. It's not the same thing. I said, Christians don't think Catholics are Christian. She's like,
No,
well, they are. They believe in Christ. I said, Mom, you and I can understand that Catholics are Christian, but born again Christians don't believe you're a Christian unless you're a born again Christian. So
we
they
sure
don't believe.
didn't.
And I said, that's why it was such a huge deal when JFK was elected and why it wasn't until Biden that we got another Catholic because Christians don't believe Catholics are Christian.
No, we don't. Or they don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to identify
Yeah, there you
myself
go.
with them anymore. But yeah, no, we sure didn't. We definitely thought Catholics were in need of saving.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
definitely think
They're
Catholics
like
need
there's like
salvation.
Christians and then Catholics and Jews and
Yeah,
Muslims and like Catholics
yeah,
are their own. Yeah, I don't know
yeah,
that everyone knows that, or at least maybe not people who are more Catholic or in Catholic spaces. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. It was, it was, I learned a lot about community during that time. It was very community driven, which is one of the things that I missed about it the most once I got out. Cause then it was like, okay, how do, how do I
Yeah.
go about building community without this religion? Right. And luckily I found my way. But it was also quite traumatic. Like there was a lot of shit that happened during my time.
Religious trauma is real.
My God, so much religious trauma. I'm sure I haven't even dealt with it all yet. And I've been out in 12, so it's 13 years now. Oh, I'm sure I still need therapy for some of the shit that went down.
Well, after my kid was born, like I've never been religious, wasn't raised religious. My parents always gave us the freedom that if we wanted to explore religion, they would like take us and drop us off at a church, but they were like, we know what we are and this isn't for us, but you're welcome to explore those things. They let me sign up for vacation Bible school once and they took me, even though that was not their thing. So like I explored with some of that when I was younger, mostly because of that community piece, like having
Hmm.
friends that were in church and then being like,
Yeah.
well, I want like, it was that FOMO of like, well, my friends are
Yeah.
doing it, I want to do it. And then I will say, like, after I had my son, I was really craving community too. And like, how do you find that community now when he's in school? It changes things because you start to build community through the school. But
Hmm.
before that, it was like, I didn't have friends because we were older parents. So we didn't really have
Hmm.
friends who had kids the same age. And it was like, how do I find people? And I really thought about like, I went to an Episcopalian church because I was like, well, at least I know they share my belief system, right? Because they were very LGBTQ friendly and everything.
Hmm.
It was one of those, like, we welcome all. And I was really excited about it. And then I got there, I was like, this is fucking Catholicism just with like gay folks
Yeah.
around. Like, I
Yeah.
still can't
Yeah.
do it. Like,
Yeah.
and then we tried one other church that was more like a Unitarian kind of thing, which my mom did for a while. And I kind of remember that. And it's kind of like groovy, man. But in the end, we were like,
Groovy.
yeah, they are kind of like, the end, you're still like, yeah, but they still are believing these wacky things that I just can't kind of get behind. Like, this is
Yeah.
not for us. So, like, we gave up on it. But that is a piece that I think keeps a lot of people in
Yeah.
and is really a strong, because where else do we have community like you have when you are part of an organized either religion or a church? It
Hmm.
does create that. And it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. They're really good at creating it, but they're also really good at exploiting it.
And isn't that the case? Like, cults are, like
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes. Where is the line between community and cult?
Yeah, no, me and a lot of my really close friends that I have now, we went to that same church together, and most of us have left. Actually, I think all of us have left, and we're still really close. And we talk about it almost every time we see each other, how it was very cultish. Like there were a lot of cultish practices and principles that were happening. Like if you have a differing opinion on something, you're kind of like ostracized, and like there's a lot of like surveillance type of behavior that's happening.